Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Wandering Podcast, where we take advisement from outside the box. I'm Rihanna Ritter, your host. I'm an intuitive, sexuality, and authentic expression coach. Are you an accomplished professional who plays the part of having it all figured out? Who's strong for everyone else, but feels lonely, misunderstood, like you can't tell anybody the truth about how stressed you are, how not passionate you are about your life and all that you've created? I guide my clients to deep, lasting fulfillment. I re-engage them with their bodies, their pleasure, their desire. I help them align to enjoy fulfillment and prosperity in all areas of their lives. Today, my guest is founder of Encoraco, lawyer and retirement transition expert, Elizabeth Zelinka Parsons. Thank you for being here today, Elizabeth. Welcome.
Thank you. I'm really excited for the conversation.
Yeah, so retirement transition expert sounds very important. I hear of a lot, or I've seen a lot of people who enter retirement and it's like they've lost their purpose and their sense of direction, and they deteriorate, their health deteriorates quickly. So I'd love to hear how you came into that and starting Encoraco.
Absolutely. I'd be happy to share that because like many things, I think people end up in lines of work that were sort of inspired by their own journey in some way. And, I myself was a very intense professional earlier in my life. I was a lawyer at a large Wall Street firm and had worked, incredibly hard to get there, and was always very focused on achieving things, both in my school world as well as once I got out. And so, I think your topic on this podcast is so interesting because I think a lot of us are climbing furiously up ladders that we haven't ever examined and asked ourselves, do we even want to be on that ladder? But we're climbing that anyway. So anyway, I was sort of me. And, then by my mid-30s, I had, a very successful career and an 80-hour-a-week job, but I also had two small kids. And, I started realizing that I was hiring other people to live my life for me so I could go earn all this money so I could pay these people to live my life for me. It was like, what am I doing?
Wow.
And it was really hard. I mean, I was at a point that I felt the collision of those two very important commitments where it was unsustainable to continue to try to be great in both of those roles. And so obviously, for me anyway, I made the decision to let my career go because I had done the math, right? And I thought, oh, I've got enough money at the moment, not forever, to buy myself a little bit of time so I can reorganize and reorder my life and my priorities, spend some time with my kids and sort of figure out how I might do this differently. And that included moving away from a very big, expensive city, DC, to Tucson, Arizona, and giving myself the permission to say I'm front-ending my retirement a little bit. I'm just going to borrow some time and a little money from my future so I can use it now. And that all made total sense to me. And to be honest, I didn't really analyze it more deeply than that. And so once I made the move and the initial euphoria wore off, what I found quite sort of alarmingly is that I had completely lost my sense of self. I had like trashed, I didn't know what my identity was anymore. I had nowhere to put my skill set. I'd moved to a much more laid back place where all my intensity was completely misplaced. I didn't know how to live my life without all that pressure and all that time scarcity as my constant companion. And I really didn't know how to sort of mark my achievements. I had lost connection with myself and with the ability to just be. I was like, I think I say in my book, I had become a very good human doing, but not a very good human being. So anyway, I became very familiar personally with the blind spots that I think exist sometimes when people imagine what retirement is. And you imagine if you have enough money and you can be leisurely and just hang out for the rest of your days, that somehow is the thing we're all working for. That's the holy grail we are all trying for. And what I learned was that was absolutely not satisfying at all. even though I had kids, I was like busy being a mother, it wasn't using all of me. And I was feeling very, very disconnected with all the things that I thought probably mattered in life. So that decision, although it led to very good things, put me in about a 3-year tailspin that I had to work my way out of. And the work I did to do that ended up informing the work I do now and the programming that I created to help people who find themselves ahead of this inflection point and are a little worried that maybe there's more to this story than their 401k.
I can relate to so much of that because
Yeah.
I mean, not DC, but becoming an accountant, doing corporate accounting, and then finding out like, I'm too stressed. I don't really like to even be around my kids or my family. I bury myself in work so that I can avoid like intimacy.
Yeah.
There were so many things going on under the surface that I was unaware of. And then when I finally had the time to spend with them, I still was like, now what? What do I do? How do I
Right.
have relationships? Like, how do I relate to small children? I'm used to dealing with powerful adults,
Exactly.
right? So
Absolutely.
how did
All
you find like the interacting with your kids? How did you get into that groove, and how did you work yourself out of that tailspin? Because it must have been a lot of inner work, I'm imagining.
It was, that was the thing, what I did in terms of tactics, to be honest, because my kids were very little still. I mean, they were, 3 and 18 months old. So they get up at the crack of dawn and they need you all day. And so I would get up at the earlier crack of dawn. I mean, I was literally getting myself up at 5 a.m., to sit with my French press and my journal. And I literally started writing to myself about this. I was like, what is going on? I mean, I could not intellectualize my way out of this. I had to literally sort of engage in a months long conversation with myself, and writing for me helps me do that. So I really started unpacking that I had become this reactor to other people. Like that's what I knew how to do. And it was like the whole world had always handed me content to react to, content to deal with, problems to solve. And I really had never practiced the skill of asking what I wanted. And then that question is so huge, right? So I had to unpack that and break it into pieces. And I thought, well, when I ask what I want, what I mean is, what do I want my life to be about? And so then I was breaking it into pieces like, well, what do I want my health and my physical well-being to look like? What do I want my relationship world to look like? How would I map out what purpose and meaning mean to me? What's my inner life about? What is my financial world? What are the goals I really have? I mean, we all just imagine we need more, but that ends up being very hollow, So I started thinking about, well, if I could make up a perfect day, what would that look like? So I really started trying to create in the sense that I was trying to imagine things that I'd never let myself think about, because I really had never taken myself out of that reactive mode and imagined that I actually am on this planet to author a life. and that is my decision and my choice. And it's terrifying in a way, because you have so much responsibility when you look at it that way. It's like suddenly I do have to own it all. And that's a lot to own, right? Instead of saying, well, I have no choice. I have to work. I have to do these things. And so it was really empowering at the same time that it was scary. But you're right, it was a lot of inner work and a lot of studying concepts and topics and reading books that I never ever would have probably imagined I'd be interested in when I was being a lawyer. That was using a very specific part of me. But really, once I got into all this, I realized what really juiced me up more was this human stuff. And I mean, I love it. It's like, what motivates us? What's meaning? What do people think about these things? And I was reading philosophy and spiritual things, and I just was exploring. And it's a lot of what I tell my clients, you've got to live your way to these answers. They aren't somewhere in a book, you've got to imagine and explore and live, and you start feeling what's true.
Yeah. So what you mentioned earlier was paying someone to live your life for you. And I imagined that to be something that I wanted at some point. Like I want somebody else to be a nanny because I don't know how to relate to these little children. Like we can't have deep conversations. I want to have deep conversations.
Right. Right.
Or I need a personal assistant to manage all the little things. But life is practice. Life is
Yes.
actually doing, like,
Yes.
finding the magic in the mundane,
Yes.
making your own meals. If like I learned that I knew that I loved to cook early on, but then as I started doing the corporate thing and the career thing, I was like, ugh, too much of a chore.
Yep.
Hired a house cleaner. Like I don't have time for this. Like
Yep.
I make too much money. My time is worth too much money to be cleaning houses. And then to find out later as I slowed down, I actually enjoy cleaning.
Right.
Like it's something that's kind of therapeutic for me.
Right.
And so you find out all these interesting things about yourself. And that's kind of what life is and what the beauty is. And
Yeah,
um,
that's
I'm,
exactly it. It's like the word that came to me ultimately was nurturing things, and nurturing, like, not just, your children or humans, but like your point is, I mean, like I had a gardener and I had a dog walker and I had a personal trainer. And I mean, I was literally my own personal economy. And I'm like, what am I, why can't I derive all of these things? And what I realized when I moved and I decided, of course, my decision meant simplify, cut all these expenses out. And what I started to bask in was all of that, like nurturing along the parts of my life that mattered to me. And it's like there was a lot of meaning in actually creating a garden that I tend to. There was a lot of meaning in figuring out how to cook nutritious food for myself and my family. And to your point, making a lovely home. And I mean, I also needed, wanted, and ended up getting intellectual stimulation, but my life became more like a mosaic of connected pieces that was really beautiful, as opposed to this monolithic, like redlining Mach 10, go, go, go. And then everything else in my life felt like it had to fit around the edges of that,
mm,
and or get dealt with and tended to by other people. And I'm not, I'm so don't mean to sound critical of anybody who's making different decisions, because this is all, to me, it's all about what works for any particular human being. But I was just very out of touch with what it has turned out has given my life a great deal of meaning. And I mean, now my children are grown, they're in their early 20s and out of the house. And I think about what an unbelievably rich experience it was to be here for them. And it's over now, right? So I wouldn't be able to go back and redo it, and I wouldn't change it for the world. I mean, so it's just interesting, when you decide to get into the messiness of your own life, that's where you find all the little hidden, spots of gold.
yeah, absolutely. Like finding out that my kids are actual whole people with like a whole life and goals, not some chore.
Exactly. Exactly. Well, and because work, or the kind of work you were doing, and me too, time scarcity is the thing, right? It's like the one thing we all would say all the time is like, I don't have enough time for this. And it's funny because once you actually have time and you don't have to consider every single thing you do as an act of economy or not, you can just say, I don't care that I'm hanging out with my kid in the library for 2 hours. It's fine. It's fun. It's okay. But the reason that didn't feel fun before was because it felt like it was stealing away from this thing called work, that, like, if I'm not working, I'm wasting it. That's kind of the way it
Yes.
felt, right? And it was so nice to take that heavy coat off once I understood that it was something I was choosing. It wasn't just the way life worked. I mean, that didn't happen overnight, for sure, but yeah.
Yes, absolutely. I can completely relate to the idea of if I'm not working, I'm wasting time
Right.
and all the pressure that that creates. And
Right.
like I would even be at a party and not able to stop thinking about what I need to do next, or that I shouldn't be spending, like I couldn't even really fully enjoy a party.
Right.
Even a conversation with a friend, I would be like, well, I need to move this along. I have all these other things I need to do. And so
Exactly.
it went beyond just like the career work. It also would be whatever, it just was work, whatever work needed. And at
Right.
one point, it became the inner work. Now I
Mm-hmm.
have to end my leisure time because I have inner work I need to go do. Like I just noticed a pattern in myself. I need to go journal or meditate or ask the
Yes.
universe what's going on here.
Yeah.
Like just
Yeah.
this addiction to work and feeling like all of my value and worth was in working in some way.
Yeah. Yeah. It's that word should, because I think I have battled that too, like sort of my whole life. Because I don't know where it came from, if it's my personality or conditioning or who knows what it is. But there's something like soothing almost about doing all the shoulds that I think I have. Like it's as if I have now lived another day that I can mostly assume I did okay in because I did a bunch of the shoulds. And when I mean, that was more me years ago, but I still have to watch it. I can find myself wandering into that sometimes when I get stressed out. It's funny. Um, but it's so interesting because who made up the shoulds? Like, why do we have them? It's so funny. And part of what I find interesting now is because of the people I work with, they are coming out of these very intense careers. And I relate to where they are. I mean, I remember being there, but they will acknowledge to me things like I can't stand this phone. Like it's constant. It's always with me. I have to check it nonstop, especially these days. Like it is a 24/7 situation. A lot of these companies are global, multiple time zones. Everybody's got to be available all the time. And they hate it, but they also know it's so ingrained that they're like, I can't set this thing down for 20 minutes and eat with my family without feeling really anxious about that. Which, when you think about that, that is crazy. And not that they're crazy, life's gotten crazy. It's who lives, how do we live this way, right? I mean, so I'm so glad that I got off the merry-go-round when I did, because I know that given my predilection to satisfying the needs of other people and doing all this stuff, I would be that person sitting there like chained to my phone. I know I would.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. And as you said, like it's a practice, like it continues, the patterns continue to show up, but
Yes.
having the awareness and having the tools, like you provide your clients awareness and then tools to step out of the pattern, right?
Yes. Exactly.
Yeah.
Yes.
The people pleasing, the perfectionism, the overachieving, like certain people are attracted to these high powered, high pressure careers. And usually what I find the common denominator is low inherent self-worth.
Right.
And it can come from a variety of different things. For me, it came from intense religious upbringing plus
Yeah.
like Christian fundamentalist, Jehovah's Witness. Like
Right.
if you are an adult who chooses to join that church, there's a
Right.
very good chance you have really low self-esteem because you wouldn't otherwise put up
Yeah.
with people controlling you to that degree,
Right.
right?
Right.
And so then you're likely to raise your children with those same beliefs. And then
Right.
the religion like reinforced it way intensely. So
Yes.
for another person, it could just be that their father was a military person and he was very authoritarian and
Right.
you
Right.
know it comes from different places and it can be helpful to examine where it came from
Yes. For sure.
and process whatever emotions needed to be processed, reframe the beliefs so that
Yes.
you can find out. Ultimately, what I found out most recently was I'm not, nobody's in charge of me. I am an adult and I
Exactly
am in
right.
charge of me.
There's nobody watching you, right? Going,
Yes.
you're screwing that up. Right. So it's so funny you put it that way, because what I came to is in my examination of all of this, and it was years. And I mean, I still talk to a therapist once a month. I find it very helpful to get perspective on myself and how I'm experiencing my life, and am I having enough joy and all those things. And then I really want to stay in touch with those questions. But when she finally helped me identify what my root was, like, why is this workaholism thing like a tendency? The phrase that resonated with me was somewhere along the way, as probably a tiny kid. And again, I don't know what all the reasons are yet. I mean, I can guess, but I'll leave those aside. But it was the phrase "not enough." That's all. It wasn't that I don't like myself. It's that I'm not quite enough. I have to, like, always have to go that extra mile. And, and that would show up in all kinds of ways, that, like, you can't do just what is asked of you. You've got to go more. You got to go further. You got to try harder. You got to get more praise, because it's not enough otherwise. And to your point, I'm like, well, who is deciding what enough is? I mean, that's my job, and I'm very happy to say, I think I've recovered largely from those tendencies. However, like all of these things, like you said, they're always out there. I mean, they're out there and you got to keep your eye on them, Like, I see you over there.
There's a temptation to fall back in the pattern because it's very comfortable.
Yes.
And it can be actually more. I mean, I know I can just feel that 3-year tailspin was painful. Like it was a journey, like to be feeling like you're in a void and you don't know.
Yes.
I mean, I can relate. And I see people who haven't done that work yet.
Right.
And so I had a friend at some point where I bought this ring that just said, "I'm enough."
Yeah.
And it's just to remind you, like, but you'll have people like coaches or, other people who have maybe an opposite problem where they're more of a procrastinator. They don't get things done. They're not really in their masculine energy. They're more in a wounded, I wouldn't even call it a feminine energy, like not getting things done. I don't consider that a feminine trait. It's more of just a wounded. Yeah. And so they find that what they needed was to just work harder and do stuff. But people like us might be attracted to that kind of thing because that was kind of the authority that was modeled to us. And that is not the kind of messaging we need. So I had the friend, I bought the ring that said, "I'm enough." And she was like, "What is with these people who think that being enough is enough? Like, you need to be better than enough. You need to be excellent." And I was like,
why are you settling? Right.
Yeah. I'm like, maybe that's true for you, or maybe you're still in the pattern of overachieving perfections and you're not aware of it. But we all have different levels of, it's like this spectrum of what do we need. And like, when I just see, like, I look back at religious, like nuns and monks, and this pattern of self-flagellation, like where you're just whipping yourself all the time. Like that, to me, when I hear somebody say something like that, it's like, you're still believing that you need to whip yourself into shape all the time. So you don't feel like you're enough.
Right. Yeah, exactly. No, it's very, very interesting. And, I think the other big shift that people have the opportunity to make is, when we are conditioned by work or, and again, I think our educational systems tend to operate this way too, but we're always measured and graded and receiving these external sources of validation. And so for a lot of my clients, it's things like, how many hours did I bill last year? Did I bill more than that person? Did my bonus, was it good or not good? Did I get a raise? Am I a partner or not? It's these indicia that other people give you that say you're doing well or you're not doing well. And you get so conditioned to it that you forget that you should or could source approval from yourself. You could source the security and source the sense of okayness and enoughness from yourself. And really, that's the place it resides anyway. And, that was something I had to come to, because I was so used to all of these metrics about how I perform. And my gosh, I think from the time I can remember having a conscious thought about what the world expected of me, it was oh, I'm supposed to get really good grades. I'm supposed to please all these people. I get these assignments. I'm meant to do them well. Like that's what we are taught our whole lives. And then you get rewarded for doing it. And so it's just like Pavlovian. So I remember that having this moment where it was like, wait a minute though, I'm the one who but I would like to source these things from me. And then you're thrown back on that huge question. Okay, but what are my indicia that I'm living a life that feels on purpose to me? And those are those heavy questions, and I think they're so difficult to grapple with. A lot of times people are just like, yeah, I think I'll just stay on the ladder because that's a lot, that's a lot to
Yeah.
figure out.
Yeah. And I mean, something you mentioned before too is what you did and what you do with your clients is this desire mapping, right?
Yeah.
Where you start asking yourself, what does the perfect day look like? Like
Yes. Yes.
that is a very simple question that most people cannot answer.
No. It's completely stymieing people. Well, and what's interesting is usually the first answers to that are they start describing their actual days. Like, well, this is how I get up at this time. I check my email. They're right off and running on the day they typically live. I'm like, whoa. No.
This
Is
means
that
I'm right.
ideal day?
Right.
And it's so funny though, because you're just so routinized into these habits. And I warn people, when you retire, if you're used to this stream of like content flying at you, especially through your inbox, where it's just a never ending to-do list that other people have access to, like they just put stuff on your list all day. I mean, you have to be very careful when you set work down that you don't just go straight to your desk out of habit and start looking for things to react to. And when you find nothing in your inbox, now you're just doom scrolling on, social media. I mean, that is a pattern that people have, and it's misery. And so it's so important to me that people think about the need to reshape those things before they're actually confronted with the change, because it can feel almost like you spiral into this dark place where you feel alone, like you're the only one who doesn't get it. And then, I mean, that's what happened to me. My self-confidence, which had been really robust, it sank to a place that I didn't even recognize myself. And it was very scary, because from that place, you have to climb out, you have to create out, and you're feeling like at the lowest ebb you've ever felt. That is the thing I like to help people try to navigate with more agency than I felt I had, because it's tough.
Yeah. Trying to create from that place where you feel completely lost, like you don't know who you are, you're worthless, takes a monumental amount of energy.
Yes.
And so if you can start doing this inner work, working with a coach like yourself, and doing this before you make that transition, while you still have a lot of energy, where you
Yes.
still have a lot of confidence.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
You're standing on strong, solid feet at that time. And it's so much easier to approach this unknown world that you're about to go live in from there than to, like, as I have joked so many times, I base jumped out of my life and it was like, whoa, I hope the bungee cord isn't frayed, and it was frayed, and it was way messier than it needed to be, I think. But it was a gift. I mean, there was so much that I learned through that experience, but it was definitely hard and lonely, because I'd also moved to a place where I knew nobody, I was very isolated in that sense. And so that's the other thing people often do when they retire, they move, right? And so they leave their whole community and support system behind. So even getting ahead of that and recognizing the need for pathways to community and connection are like, those are so important at this time, because you're moving through such a huge change. And to be alone in that, I think it makes it that much harder,
Absolutely. Community and connection is so important. And I think, some of us, jump and the net will appear. I think some of us, maybe if our life path is more to be a teacher or a coach, we maybe have to do that kind of frayed bungee cord jump and go into the depths of the dark night of the now I'm hearing it's dark night of the ego more than it is dark night of the soul, but
Oh, that's
it's,
fascinating. Yes.
yeah,
I
yeah,
like that. Yeah.
yeah, because your soul is trying to guide you, and your
Right.
ego is like,
You're
no, 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 no.
I already got this.
Yes, yeah. But so if it could have happened another way for you or me, it would have. But like for me, like financially, it became a disaster.
Yes.
I had to deal with so much emotional baggage and trauma and pain. Like I found out I had complex PTSD and I didn't know it.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
And I was working with coach and therapy and all different kinds of therapy.
Yeah.
And like some of the longest 2 years of my life,
Yep.
the hardest, but also so many gifts in it. And
Yeah.
like when you kind of come home to yourself, you find out who you are, and you
Yes.
start to, I mean, even like romantic relationship patterns. I got a divorce, and then
Same.
going into the dating world was
Totally.
like,
All
oh
of
my
that.
gosh, there's so much drama that I'm creating right now that I never thought I was. And so, but it is really nice. Like, so maybe that was our path,
Yeah.
but perhaps for some other people, like if you don't feel like you want to be a coach or a teacher and you just want to be like, I want to enter retirement with purpose and clarity and joy and connection, and I want it to be as easy as possible, like hire Elizabeth, have someone who can guide you through that, because otherwise you're going to have to feel like we felt.
Well, and I think what's interesting too is, I mean, you made me think about the difference too in stage of life. And I mean, I'm assuming I was like 35-ish when I did my base jump. And, in a way, I think at that age, you hope and assume you have decades ahead. And so it's messy and hard. And you're like, oh my gosh, what have I done? Will I ever recover? But you sort of know you will eventually. You sort of think like, yeah, I've got a lot of life left to live. And like you, I ended a marriage. I mean, there was so much reordering that happened as I was figuring out who I was. But I think that gets scarier like at 65 if you're doing that, right? So that's the other thing that, I did this and experienced this at an age where I believed and assumed I had a long time still to reorder my life and myself. And I think that as people approach something like this, north of 60, let's say, it's like, wow, I mean, do you really want to have to move through that amount of chaos at that stage of life? I don't know. I think it's harder, because I think there's also the idea that a lot of people hold, and I don't necessarily think it's this crisply true, but they imagine that like they're washed up professionally, like no one will ever hire me, or I would never be able to do anything else that uses that part of me because I'm too old. I mean, I see hundreds of examples of my clients who make that a myth, but I still think it's in people's minds. And so you feel like a door is closed, right? Doors are closing. And so to find yourself in that level of upset, if you will, it's without feeling like you've got all these doors of opportunity still in front of you. I think that could be even harder, you know?
Absolutely. I mean, your physical stamina is different
Yes.
over 60. Your um when you have that feeling of being washed up, and our culture promotes that
Oh,
feeling
yes.
hugely, like, oh,
Totally.
beauty and youth are the standard of value in
Yep.
our
Exactly.
world and our society. So, and if that is in your mind, then that is going to be in your experience. Like
Yeah.
if that's a belief, then you're going to see evidence of it everywhere in your outer circumstances. So
That's
it's
right.
really, it's so tempting to ignore it and pretend that you'll deal with it later, but
Yeah.
like these are supposed to be your retirement golden years. Like you've worked all these years and you should get to enjoy. Do you really want to go into this big emotional battle, like emotional, somatic, mental ego death?
Right.
Because it's going to happen. But if
Yep.
you have guidance, like when I have a coach, it's so much easier for me to move through these things faster. And I've
Without a
been
doubt.
taught how to
Yeah.
move things somatically through. So like those really icky feelings of heaviness, I can just
Yes.
feel them fully, and they only
Yes.
last a couple minutes instead
Yes.
of burying, avoiding, thinking something's wrong with me, and all the things
Right.
that we've been taught to do, like bury those emotions, suppress them, pretend like you're perfect and everything's wonderful at all times.
Exactly. Exactly. Well, the other thing that's so funny about the change of retirement too is I think as unsettling as the person confronting it might find it, everyone else around them is like, what's the problem? You're retiring. Why aren't you happy? And so they feel sheepish about admitting that this isn't like just all going to be fun, right? It's like, well, I'm not feeling great about this, but I want to tell people because they're like basically laughing at me. And that's a common theme. And I think especially because when you're still 20 years from retiring, it sounds great. It's when you're right up on it, you're like, oh my gosh, I don't have this figured out. And I don't want my life to be over. I don't want this to feel like I'm shrinking in relevance, and to your point, you've worked so hard. Like, why wouldn't the next decade be the best decade of your life? It should be, but you can't rely on pure leisure as the answer. That is not what humans thrive on. I mean, leisure has meaning when it's in tension with worthy effort. I mean, that's what leisure is about. It's recovery from effort, or what we would call work. And so you've got to find your new work. And I don't like that word so much because it implies stuff we wish we were doing less of, but find your new engagement. Find the thing that keeps you engaged and stimulated and growing. And then leisure is going to keep having some meaning in your life. But I think that we're sold this idea that you're working really hard so you can have all this money so you can just be at leisure the rest of your life. Well, like there's this great quote I've included in my book, that Anne Lamott's father wrote in an article, the author Anne Lamott, but his comment was something like leisure, leisure is like a life of leisure is a life leaning toward death, the greatest leisure of all, which I thought was so on point. I love it.
Yeah, absolutely. Somebody said, I don't know where I heard it, but he said, yeah, so how long are you going to sit on the beach drinking margaritas all day until you're bored of that? Like
Right.
a week, maybe
Right.
2 weeks, but like
Yeah,
it
it's
gets
pretend.
it gets old. You need to have something that is important to you, that you're passionate about, that you
Right.
feel is a contribution to your community or your family,
Yeah,
something that
exactly.
lights you
Exactly.
up.
Yes. And that calls things out of you, and I think, I mean, we always joke with our clients, probably everybody's ready for like a month of Saturdays. We get it. Like you've been working so hard, but like 365 Saturdays in a row. Ooh, no.
That's
That does
daunting.
not sound good.
Yeah, feeling like, I mean, we need a container, and we need direction, and just like, I kind of forgot my point, but I think we already made it. But tell us about your book, and tell us about Encoraco.
Yeah, of course, absolutely. So yes, with Encore, it's just it's a platform where the material that I've been coaching in and around for 15 years is available through a variety of different programs. I mean, we have programs ranging from 2 intense days with one person and their spouse to plan very deeply for their next chapter, all the way to group sessions where we do this with a whole cohort of people who are in a similar stage, and everything in between. We have a great team of coaches who are very, very skilled in this material. But all of that said, the book came about because as I, of course, like everyone, discuss what I do professionally, usually in casual settings or social settings, I was struck by how many people would say to me, oh my gosh, I know 5 people that need to talk to you. As in, they know 5 people either about to retire or who already retired, and they're completely lost. They don't like being retired, or they are terrified of what's to come. And it struck me, it's almost like an epidemic. I mean, this is a constant thing I hear. And it it really made me feel compelled to try to build a book that could provide a framework for people who don't necessarily have the luxury, time-wise or money-wise, to spend with a professional person, but who could benefit from at least a framework. And the learning that we've taken out of, doing this work for 15 years with people. And my title being A High Achiever's Guide to Thriving in Retirement. I mean, I don't know that I can safely assume everybody in the world feels as anxious about retirement as I experienced it or as my clients do. But I certainly know with people who are driven by that external validation model, it's tough. And it's tough for a lot of the reasons that I discuss in my book. And I try to be, clear about strategies and tactics that people can actually use in their lives to begin to navigate that little river themselves. But, we also try to provide a lot of very accessible support beyond just the book for people who just say, hey, look, I think I could use a hand with this. I've never done it before. It doesn't seem as easy as it sounded when I was, 35. So that's really what our work's all about.
Awesome. And where can the book be found?
So it's sold everywhere books are sold, every major outlet. And I think there are links to it on both of my business websites. One's geared more to organizations, Zelinka Parsons, the other's geared more to individuals, Encore. But all of it, I think if you go to LinkedIn and find me there, you'd find a path to all of those things very easily.
Okay, wonderful. Yeah. And so it's awesome that you created this book that's accessible to all people. And a book and self-study is definitely one of the ways that I began this journey and doing this work. And then at some point I found that I needed actual one-on-one time or group time at least, but people, like being with people, working with people. Yes.
Exactly.
Because self-study takes you so far and then there's no accountability. And it's the point where, like, I think when we think of retirement, we think I'm not going to do anything uncomfortable anymore. But no, we have to continuously do things that are uncomfortable. And when you're in self-study without accountability, without
easy to away. Yes.
Yeah, you can backslide, you can just skip over the parts that feel scary. And it's so great to work with people that want you to thrive, that are cheering you on. And then and it is expensive to work with a coach, but at some point you want to live your life instead of paying other people to live it. Right. So
it's another investment in your life, I think. I mean, I'm very aware when I'm working with my clients. I mean, they're the age they are. I mean, they are probably in the, whatever, third to fourth quarter of their lives. And, suddenly it's not money that's the most precious resource, it's time. And knowing that you're planning to use it well and you have a game plan to use it well, I think is very empowering and energizing at that stage of life, as opposed to feeling like, well, I know my time is not as abundant as it once was. And I also have no idea that I'm using it well. And I have no idea what that even means. Work was always that, now it isn't. And that can be very disconcerting too. So, I think it's a great investment, whichever modality somebody chooses, to invest in making the next chapter like truly spectacular. Like, why not? Like, why default into so-so, if you have the means to do that. And I think that's often how people see it, but it's a tricky change for sure.
Yeah. And you deserve it. You deserve to invest in yourself and to spend your time connecting with people and feeling amazing. And these experiences, like working with coaches and working in groups, have all been really wonderful for me. Like a lot of joy, soothing pleasure, like learning to be in my body and feel safe within myself without needing so much external validation. And then in these types of spaces, like, people are aware and they will let you have your space if you need your space. Like, somebody's not always coming up to you being like, are you okay? Do you need support? Like, it's adults and it's like, oh, she's over there. That means she needs a moment. So we're just going to let her do that. Like, so it's really an awesome place to be. And it's wonderful to find people who are kind of on the same path, and we all understand that we're mature and we have agency. And, you know, it's, and like you said, I mean, mentioning the word investment again, it's so worthwhile. I hadn't really felt like I had experienced life until I entered some of these spaces and worked with people who have similar goals and who want to thrive and not just be directed and you know, validated for their achievements.
Right. Exactly. Exactly. It's a whole like opportunity to discover so many things, and you know, just to, you know, get out of the tunnel vision of whatever has defined life up to that point. So I see it, you know, I always say this, it's more like a graduation than anything else. If you can approach it with that mindset, the way you approached whatever the last graduation in your life was, where you're like, wow, the world's my oyster, then it gets kind of fun, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. Tell us again where we can find you.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm my, you know, name it on LinkedIn, Elizabeth Zelinka Parsons. You'll find my website on Encoraco.com, also zelinkaparsons.com. There are lots of links to other materials there, and my book is, you know, everywhere. So Encore, A High Achiever's Guide to Thriving in Retirement. So yeah, I'm always happy to connect with folks.
Yeah, and we'll have all the links in the episode description. So thank you so much for being here, Elizabeth. It's wonderful talking to you.
Likewise. Thank you. This has really, really been enjoyable.